Concrete pastures.
Wow.
That's cream, that's right.
Hello, family. Welcome back to Concrete Pastures. I'm Nancy Mulemwasisi. For anybody who is new, welcome to our platform and thank you so much for tuning in. I am so excited to have an amazing guest who's going to be teaching us a whole lot about life. Okay. She's known for so many things, but today we're diving deeper into some important topics like infertility, her journey from Uganda to, the US of A and everywhere else she's traveled around the world. Before I introduce her, this is a space where we highlight immigrants that have relocated to different countries in search of greener pastures. We share our stories as we're doing today, as well as various experiences and lessons we've learned along the way, and share a new perspective of how an immigrant journey is. So whether you are a current immigrant, soon or later to be immigrant, or just curious, come along with us on this journey and let's get a better understanding of what it really means to be an immigrant. So subscribe. Some of you have been watching our content for a while without subscribing. Like and share. This way we can continue to have amazing guests like the one we have today. I am so excited and honored to introduce our guest today. She is here to share her powerful story of resilience, hope, and persistence. In an incredible journey that began in Uganda and eventually led her to the United States, Sarah pursued her graduate studies at the esteemed Columbia University. Throughout her career, she has taken various roles in fashion, technology, venture capital, and international development, including a few positions at the United Nations. As the driving force behind Kintu New York, a sustainable brand she established to create high quality, ethically made leather goods using fair trade practices, Sarah showcased her commitment to ethical business practices and quality craftsmanship. However, her most cherished role is that of a mother. After enduring 6 years of infertility, she welcomed her first child, a testament to her unwavering resilience and resolve. Notably, she recently introduced a free women's health newsletter named Women's Health Paper, providing a nurturing space for women to discuss reproductive health and fertility concerns.
Don't worry.
Welcome, my dear. How are
Yeah.
you?
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I love your platform because I just love uh, for women and everyone really having the ability to tell our stories authentically and
Yes.
having a space to connect and be inspired and inspire others and learn. So thank you for having me and to our joint friend Igosa for connecting us. I'm very excited.
Yes, I am so grateful to my girl Igosa for this. This is
Yeah.
a great connect, and I'm just, it's an honor.
No, thank you. Thank you.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. We always start from home. What do you remember about being home in Uganda?
Yeah, it's interesting that I'm your first Ugandan guest, so I'm really honored. But Uganda is an amazing place. I don't know if you've been to East Africa. It's such a chill, nurturing, welcoming environment. Ugandans are known for being like super friendly, welcoming. I grew up, in just a regular home, with uh, sisters and brothers, and there was a lot of emphasis on like education and, you know,
Yeah, like everywhere else in
everywhere else. Yes, yes, yes.
Africa.
And religion and, like really learning skills at home.
Yeah,
Uh, and I went to boarding school, this amazing British school that had been transformed. It used to be a boys' school, King's College, Bordeaux. And there is where I think I just really blossomed as a kid who at that time was very artsy and into the arts. And now it's like, okay, like that's not something that's encouraged, from where we come from. I
yeah,
love dancing and arts, and
Yup.
writing plays and all the things, but I was constantly pushed to like go to school, study, do this, do that. Um, I grew up around like really strong women. You know, my mother was a single mom for a while
Mm,
because my dad was involved in politics, and then, you know, he was not there. So she raised me and my sisters, and we were like super, super poor at the time because she was also a refugee and she had nothing. And
mm,
then, you know, eventually my dad like found his way, and then we sort of um, our circumstances improved. But I just remember playing a lot, you know, making lots of friends. I remember like really being interested in music, dancing, sports, like, and then later fashion. You know, I discovered my love for fashion. I told a story of, you know, like in Uganda, we have this, it's called Owino Market, and it's actually like a flea market on a grand scale. Forget
ah,
any, I think it's that like that market that you see, those African markets that you see on TV, like you know, the Lagos market, it's that
yes.
huge. And you just go there and buy clothes and stuff. And I remember going there and like grabbing this bag, and it happened to be like a Coach bag. And I didn't know Coach at the time. I mean, this was like in the 1990s.
Oh, wow.
And the denim and everything and putting things together. Yeah. And then from a very young age, though, I think that I remember moments where I made some comments or did some things that were really like feminist from a really young age. And when I, of course, when I got older and I traveled the world and learned like there's a name for this thing that I really believe in.
Yes.
Um, I always questioned like, why do boys get this and we don't? Like, why because I went to this school where they introduced girls later. It used to be a boys' school. So everything was centered around boys, you know, like all the chapel and the dining room and everything was on the boys' end, and you know we were on the girls' end, and we had to walk a long way to go. And you know, and there were just a lot of things that were imbalanced. You know, everything was catering around the boys, and I questioned a lot. I actually helped to change some. The boys used to go to prom and the girls were not allowed to go, and I remember being like, this is wrong. Like, we also like should be able to go and do something, go to prom or whatever. And I created a petition. I went to the headmaster, and you know, I was that kind of girl. So I'm just thinking about it now and being like, wow, that's just like, yeah, those are my early memories, really.
Wow. You know, I have so many questions.
Yes.
Just some add-ons, my 2 cents to what
Yes.
you're saying, because I can definitely relate when it comes to some of these things that you've mentioned. I have mentioned on here. I think one of my friends was interviewing me, more Sibo, and she was asking me about what it looks like to be, you know, a single parent.
Mhm.
I made it clear that you can be a single parent even when you're married.
Mhm.
And you
Yes.
just mentioned it because for a lot of people, when they see that someone has a spouse,
Mhm.
you automatically are not single. You can be a single parent being with a partner because of
Mhm.
circumstances. Like
Mhm.
in your case, your dad was working and there was no that partnership of let's raise the kids together. It was just I'm assuming that's
Yes.
what transpired. And for
Mhm.
me, it was that way. I was married before I separated. I was already a single parent in the marriage.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
it's something for people to really like think about because there's a stigmatism against being single,
Yeah.
single parent and stuff,
Yes.
especially back home. It's
Yes.
just all of
I,
Africa. It's just something else.
yeah, I think there's no name for it. You know, the
Yeah.
men go out and work and the women stay at home and raise the kids. And
Yeah.
it's almost like my dad was amazing. He was really focused on us going to school, providing, like doing all those things. But I don't remember my dad ever being in the kitchen, you know? And now I look back, I'm married, you know, my husband cooks and cleans and does
Yeah.
all the things. And I'm like, how, of course, I think there's a bit of help at home,
Yeah.
but just imagine growing up and never seeing your dad like making an omelette or doing anything.
Uh-huh.
And, like our moms raised us really strong and our dads contributed in a big way.
Yeah.
But I wonder if that does something, to you, like as a woman, as a man, like as a child.
It
I don't
does.
know.
I think it
Yeah.
puts you in, instead of being feminine, it puts you
Yes.
in this space where you're always on the go. You can't really embrace being feminine because you are
Yes.
constantly trying to make decisions, which is mostly if you are being helped by your partner, you get, as a woman, you can sit
Yes.
into your femininity compared
Yes.
to being this manly figure. Meanwhile,
Yes.
you are a
Yes.
woman.
Yes. And that's the
Lack of
thing
a better word.
yes, and that's the thing, like all our mothers are very strong. Like
Yes.
we ever stop to ask why they're so strong? Like,
Yes.
how are you so strong? Like, how are you so strong? But
Yeah.
also, like, I think it creates unrealistic expectations, like especially for men,
Yes.
Uh, I've dated some guys in the past, or a guy who said, like, I don't go to the kitchen because I never saw my parents in the kitchen.
Mhm.
And I'm thinking, okay, but that was like then, this is now.
Yeah.
Like, well, we're both working and studying and like doing a lot of things. And also like I think I have someone said something really interesting. A friend of mine said that, we don't have a name for feminism in like African culture. Like the women are very strong and leading and, and in the home, you and I know who the leader of the home was. You
Yeah.
know, we don't need to explain. Like, how
Uh-huh.
you're like, hey, I'm going to tell your father, like your mother,
Yeah.
and you're like crying. Your mom is like, oh, your mother is coming. You will see. Like, it was just like that kind of thing. But like, yeah, I mean, this is just really interesting. There's no reward. The reward is like your kids grow up and they become, amazing.
Yeah.
And there's no thought, like, how did you get so strong?
Yeah.
I got so strong
And
because
then
I did on my own.
yeah. And
Yeah.
then the kids also adapt
Yes.
from that. And
Yes.
everybody's wondering, why are you so strong? Why are you so
Yes.
strong? And yeah.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to touch also on the boys aspect.
Mhm.
I think the last episode we released, we were also talking about how in my country, I don't know if you guys do it. Um, we have bride's price.
Mhm.
So
Yes.
before you get married, the bride's
Yes.
price.
Yes.
So, and then from that, there's also a traditional ceremony that's done, but it's mostly catered to a woman.
Yes.
The woman is taught how to treat the man and taught a
Yes.
whole lot of things.
It's
So
the
we
same.
discussed about that some of these traditions that we continue to do, and even in 2024 we need to eradicate them
Yes.
because they are not helping marriages, being that
Yes.
it's only one-sided. The woman
Yes.
is the only one that's going through that training and the man is just chilling. I
Yes,
guess.
it's amazing you said that because I've never really discussed this publicly, but I remember when I was around 12 years old,
Hmm.
there's some cultural rituals that are taught to girls
Hmm.
uh, in Uganda, and your aunt tells you that you need to do this.
Yep.
And, it's like hush hush, it's only girls, and they bring you to, the bush and tell you that you need to do these things. And I remember asking my aunt, I said, do the boys have to do this? And she said, no. And I said, well, why do I have to do it? And she said, well, the girls have to do it because it's going to make you like a better wife,
Yes.
to your
Yep.
husband and more desirable. And I said, well, I don't even know if I want to get married. And I said, since the boys are not like required to do this, I'm not going to do it. It was amazing. I must have been like 12 or 14. And I think back in that moment and think like, wow, like I don't actually know where this is where I know that I began to just want more, for women and girls and for
Yeah.
myself. And it's unfair that we have to do this so that I'm more deserved and pleasing the man that I don't even know anything about marriage. Like I was like, Well, I don't know if I want to get married. Like,
Yes.
I'm 14 or 12 or whatever. Yeah, so this is something that we definitely have to think about, you know. I mean, it's really good to steep your children in tradition when it
Yep.
helps, you know, and to kind of break that cycle when it doesn't.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I completely agree. There's another episode that I'm releasing this week actually. It's with Monica. She's from South Sudan, and with them, it's actually the girls don't go to school, the boys go to school, which is I think is very painful. That is the case.
Yes.
They it she's working towards make making a point because
Mm.
she's been educated. She lives in Kenya now.
Yes. Yes.
So she's making it a point that it's okay for girls to get educated, just the
Mhm.
same as the boys. Um,
Absolutely.
they
Yes.
start to train the girls to get married at 12 years old, which is
Yes. Yes.
uh, yeah,
Yes.
it's
This
very
is an
negative.
issue around the world. And, you
Yeah.
know, when you think about a society like how women contribute so much, and
Too
women are
much.
the backbone of society,
Yeah.
and men can't be handed women that are not, you know, educated, the other way around as well. Like women benefit when men are educated.
Yes.
So we really need to, this is an amazing cause, and I really highly um just really amazed and encouraged by people who champion this cause.
Yeah, no, thank you. We digress, but all relevant.
Yes.
How did you end up in the US of A? When did you decide, like, let me go to the United States?
Yeah, you know, Uganda was colonized by the British, right?
Yeah.
So every like at that point, you know, most people my age, like older millennials, we mostly, if you came from a British
Guys, she
colony,
looks
end up in
25,
the
like old
UK.
times.
Yeah, you would end up in the UK, right? So the idea was like, hey, either like my sister had gone to South Africa for school, and I was like, to the UK, like that's where I'm gonna go, that's where I'm gonna go. And then one day I met this amazing missionary family that had come to Uganda to do missionary work. And they were in my dad's office. And I walked in, introduced myself, and they were like, hey, who are you? And I said, well, my dad is here. Like, you've come to see my dad. And we became great friends. And I helped them. They were trying to build vocational institutes in Uganda. And I went around with them, basically being like an interpreter for them. And we stayed in touch. And then when I finished my university in Uganda, they said, hey, like, why don't you come to the US and figure out like what you want to do from there? And so I came to the US, and the idea was for me to go to a Christian university and study like psychology. But then when I came to the US, I connected with friends that had come before me from the same school, of people that I knew in Uganda. And I lived in Arizona, which is like, at that time, I think it's much more diverse now, but I lived in a very tiny community an hour outside like the main city, Prescott. I lived in Prescott, an hour from Phoenix.
Yeah.
And oh, it was like a really tiny town that had like 3 streets, a Starbucks, a Walmart, like, you know, like quintessential. It was amazing. I remember walking the dog once and I got lost, and they came looking for me, but they were asking if anybody has seen like a black girl with a dog.
Oh my goodness.
Found me. They found me at the Starbucks in the city, like down the hill. Like that's how crazy this town was.
Oh
But
wow.
they were such a wonderful family and they supported me. So I said, look, I need to, before I jump into like psychology at a Christian university, I need to go and expose myself and see what else is out there. So I went to LA and lived with some friends. And from there, I thought like, imagine coming from that to LA. I was like, this is me. Like, I love it here.
Oh
I'm
my
gonna stay
God.
here. And then, we transitioned into me being in LA and started like hustling, working and trying to adjust, my status first. And then I started like applying to schools and then,
Mm.
working part-time. And I was doing like working in the mall at 2 a.m., basically folding clothes. I was in charge of like um the appearance basically of the store
Ah,
um
so you were
at
the
the
one dressing the mannequins?
Yes, but
Oh,
I
nice.
I started out doing that and then I became so good because I'm like very I think I have creative eye, but also like I'm very type A. I love a checklist. I love like so they would send a huge binder to like this from corporate office, like this is how the store needs to look like this belt needs to face like left. You need to fold this shirt like 3 times up. And I did, and then I became really good and I became like in charge of like the whole store. And I had people to tell, like, do this, do that, like leading a small
Wow.
team. It was amazing. And then during the day, I was working as an assistant to like the CFO and this financial team at the Children's Hospital in LA. And I met someone there that became a mentor to me. And he's the person that helped me to navigate the US. He said, look, you need to apply to schools, you need to do this. And once I applied to all these schools, he was like, you will apply to only Ivy League schools. And I'm like, okay, like, all right, like, and then I started looking at programs, Google it, and then I got into like 2 schools, Columbia, I think, and UPenn or one of those schools. And then I freaked out because I didn't have money to pay for this. And
Yeah.
he said, yeah, you can take school loans. He's amazing. He's like family. He was here last week to see the baby, but
Oh,
he
nice.
really like guided me and helped me. And, and that's how I ended up in New York. I'd never experienced snow. Like, I mean, I don't think it snowed in Prescott. And then I basically arrived in New York on January 20,
Oh
like,
no, that's the middle of
and I
winter.
had a little tiny, like, Forever 21
Sarah.
jacket, and I was wearing heels and I was wearing denim. And it's funny because people in LA now wear sneakers, but that wasn't a thing. Like, we used to wear heels. So that's how I ended up in New York. And I've lived in New York for 20 years on and off
Oh
ever
wow.
since. And it's like, how you move around the world and you try to jive with cities and you're like, do I see myself living here? Like, do I see myself living here? And I've been around the world. And it's always like, yeah, New York is my city. Like, New York has my personality. New York is an amazing city. It's given me so much. It's made me
Yeah.
who I am. I've made friends. And yeah, so I just really love it. But that's how I ended up in New York, really.
So let's talk about your brand. I mean, Kintu New York.
Yes.
Kintu New York. How did that
Yes.
come about?
Yeah, so I have this creative streak, which I've mentioned a few times now, and
Yeah.
I always wanted to create something, I always wanted to create something. And there's a time, I was a tech baby. Like, I really worked in tech in the beginning. I worked at Google, I worked at AOL, I worked at all these amazing companies. And I remember like I got laid off at I think AOL, and at that time I had lived in Italy, and I was really like into when I lived in Italy right after university. I lived in Italy for 2.5 years, and I was always into like the creating and going to artisans and trying to understand how they make things, and I loved it. And I thought like one day when there's a possibility, I will do this. So I was laid off and I had saved a bunch of money, and I thought like, hey, I have some money saved. Like, I've been laid off. Like, let me try to do this.
Mm.
And I'd been in touch with a lot of like creative spaces where people are working with artisans. I joined like fashion communities in New York, and I was learning about this work with artisans. At the time, there was a lot of like commercialization and things like machinery taking over
Mm-hmm.
like jobs, and people were losing jobs all over the world because we were starting to make things with, machinery. And
Yeah.
I just thought that I met a girl actually who was working in Kenya. Shout out to my friend Erica. She
Yeah.
had the most amazing jewelry line that she'd made in Kenya with these artisans, and I was very inspired. And then I learned about a factory in Uganda that was making leather, another factory in India that was employing women. So putting, my feminism and my entrepreneurial hat and my tech, like I'd been a tech baby at the time, like
Yeah.
this idea of founding things, was really interesting. So I took the little amount of money that I had saved and I started doing prototypes and I launched the brand, and I ran the brand for like 6, years after that, before eventually, like right before COVID, um, I sold all my inventory and my factory closed, and then I took a pause on the brand. But I learned a lot and I worked with, amazing artisans. We were paying a living wage
Yeah.
in both in Italy, Kenya, and India.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really interesting, very, very time consuming, very like challenging,
Yeah.
like learning. I was very creative, but I didn't have like operational knowledge of how to run a brand. You know,
Mm.
the the finances, the operations, the supply chain. There's a lot involved in making headway in Kenya, sending it to Italy, getting leather, like finishing a product. It was really hard. And then shipping it to all these amazing retail stores that had picked it up around the world. The profit margins, like it was really, really crazy. And I learned a lot.
No, your bags are amazing.
Thank you.
Amazing. The
Thank you.
torch is even my favorite because
Yes,
I love
yes.
the small one. The blue one
The
is my
facilities,
favorite. So
yes.
I was looking.
It was the idea that I'd lived in New York, traveled around the world, and I was always thinking about like, what could we do that's really, really well done and really good, sustainable, like really good materials,
Yeah.
but also like something that is not gonna break the bank, And that's where that came from. We absolutely used the best materials. It took me about 6 months to zero in on a leather, and I was really involved. I would go to the tanneries, I would go to leather shows and conferences and really ask how they are making leather, how they are making the product. I think what I learned is that it's just really cash intensive to launch a brand and be able to sustain it. You
Mm.
need money. And at the time, I tried to raise money and raised about 200K. But, then you need follow-on funding because production and manufacturing overseas is very expensive. And that's when everything was moving online. Like everyone was interested in investing in an online business versus like a physical goods business.
Yes.
I learned a lot, and from there, actually, what transpired after that was I really wanted to work with entrepreneurs because my journey had been really difficult. So I went and joined a small venture capital firm that was investing in entrepreneurs that are doing, sustainable like technologies and um, life-changing technologies that
Yeah.
are, in climate change, education, food, investing in these different areas that are really super important. And that's where like, just again, um, combining my love for tech and entrepreneurship. It's an ongoing journey.
Yeah. No, it's lovely. It's lovely. It's
Thank you.
amazing what you think, will not make a difference, but you made a difference in people's
Yes.
lives in
Yes.
Kenya,
Mhm.
India, and also here. So
Yeah.
it's impact. Thank
Yeah.
you for
Thank
that.
you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So I want to get into your journey of having your beautiful, beautiful baby. Do
Yes.
you mind sharing with us, and then I'll have follow-up questions with us. Like, how did it start? When did you have the bag? I want to have a baby.
Yeah, yeah, I don't actually know that initially I wasn't even sure that I wanted to be a mom,
Mm,
because I was traveling the world, I was building my brand. I was just like, this is my moment to do things, like living in New York. And then I met my husband, and I remember the first date he asked me if I wanted to be a mom, and I was like, what? Like, this is so left field, and
random.
like, I don't even know you, like, from Adam. This is ridiculous. But he sowed a little seed, and I think after I got married, remember, like, I'm an African girl who was
Yeah,
raised in a certain family, and I was deathly afraid of ever like disgracing my parents with like having a baby out of wedlock or doing anything,
yeah.
and blindly really believed that when it was time, it would be time. I would easily get pregnant, just like all the other women I knew, like just like all my friends. It never crossed my mind once, actually, that I would have difficulty. So I waited until my mid-30s, and I got married. We traveled the world again as a couple. And then I remember right before the pandemic, like my husband, like maybe 2 years before the pandemic, my husband had said to me, like, hey, I love our life and I love what we're doing. I love that we're able to travel and be together and enjoy these experiences. But do you also think that, we should try to have a baby? Because, we're both getting older. Like, I want to make sure that we can do this while we still can.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember being so annoyed, like, hey, like, pump the brakes. I know that my mom is asking, like, other people are asking, but I took it to heart and I said, look, I will, I had to go to New York. I'll come back. I'll take a test just to know, like, what, like, where
Where
I
you are.
am.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I went, I came back. I mean, that was like, it took like another 8 months, came back, took a test. And before then, I'd been having like really painful periods,
Oh, wow.
constant pain, pain when I'm on my period, pain when I'm not on my period, like just pain all the time. And I remember him saying, like, this is not normal. Like, you shouldn't be in pain all the time. You should go to
Yeah.
the doctor. Now, the US healthcare system. You just can't go and be like, I have pain, give me a scan. I
Yeah.
tried a few times and they were like, we just can't give you a scan. Like, what is the pain? And I'm like, I have pain on my periods. I have pain outside my periods. And they're like, yeah, it's normal to have pain. And this is also like really bad messaging, because later I learned that it's
Wow.
not normal to have
No,
pain
it's
on your.
not normal. It's not normal.
Yeah, like, it's not normal to have extreme pain. It's not normal to overbleed. It's not normal to have pain even when you're not on your period.
Yeah.
Like, something is wrong. That's what I learned, later. But, so then my husband was like, look, it's not normal. You need to get checked, and we need to just make sure that we actually can have babies. So we both got checked. He's fine. And they're like, well, you have myoma, like, it's like fibroids, but they're internal, and this doctor said, like, and these can prevent you from having like babies,
Yeah.
so let's give you like some medication and try to keep them at bay, and then you can start trying. Okay, easy enough. So I start taking this medication. 6 months later, okay, now it's time to start. So we start trying. The first year, nothing, and right before the pandemic, I was like, hey, like, let me just go to a fertility specialist, because we've been trying for a year and nothing has happened. And I went to a fertility specialist and they were like, yeah, ran some tests. everything is fine except for these like fibroids that are internal.
Mhm.
So, but women do get pregnant with fibroids.
They do.
Let's
Some,
just
yes.
manage, let's just manage it and make sure that we give you the right medication. Let's try like IUIs, which is the insemination where they inseminate, and put like the sperm up, so that like it swims faster.
Yes.
So we did a bunch of those, nothing happened. Like, you do 3, I think I did 4. Before actually insurances can approve IVF, you have to start with that. I did 4, nothing happened. And then right like around 2019, the doctor said, let's go like full IVF and try. And it's funny because no one told me that there is a chance that it might not work. I had no clue. I had always, of course, heard about IVF. I
Yeah.
had known 1 or 2 people that had done it that didn't want to discuss it, and they had had success. So I didn't even read, Google, whatever. I just was like, great, like we're gonna do IVF and I'm gonna have a baby like soon. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna have a pandemic baby, like nothing is gonna go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So we go and start this process and nothing.
How long did you do it for?
I mean, I did several rounds. I did from 2019, the baby just came, this year.
Wow.
So yeah, it was one cycle after another. I did IVF in New York. I tried in Zurich. I tried, eventually, we ended up going to Athens to have a baby, and we had our baby via surrogate, because I tried several times and was able to make amazing eggs, amazing embryos with my husband. We had so many amazing embryos that were PGT tested, genetic tested, and they were really fine. And then they would put them in me and they wouldn't produce any results. So it turns out that I had more than fibroids. My fibroids are internal. The doctor told me one was located exactly where the baby would grow. And I had something called adenomyosis, which prevents you also from having a baby. And this together causes inflammation. So every time a healthy, amazing, beautiful embryo was put in me, it wouldn't take. Like I wouldn't have a pregnancy at the end. The depression, the craziness, the just going through that process, injecting and trying and hoping. And I think for me, it wasn't so much the injections and the trying. I eventually became okay with all that. And I thought, like, this is what I have to do. I have to do. It was more of the failure. Like every embryo transfer that happened that didn't produce a result, I would be followed with depression and just complete utter despair, going to the therapist and talking through things, and a complete resolve to try again, and at some point, it's really difficult because you're not alone in the process, you're with someone. And my faith is as strong as this, but maybe his faith is not as strong. And at some point, I'm very grateful because my husband is completely supportive and he was there the whole time.
Yeah.
But at the same time, for him, at some point, he said, I don't want to see you like this. Like, I don't want you to go through this again. Let's just stop. Like, we've done everything we can. And I'm very proud of you. We love our life. It's amazing. Like, with or without a baby, we will be fine. And I just was like, let's try one more time. Let's try one more time. I've heard of people going broke from doing this.
Yes.
Like people selling houses and selling and moving countries. And I have a friend who just moved to another country so she can be able to do this, And I was like, New York, I had the best doctor in New York, New Jersey area. he said to me, like, after I had done like 3 failed transfers, he said, you need to have a strategy. And I thought, what do you mean a strategy? Like, I thought I had a strategy this whole time. And
Yeah.
he said, no, like, at that point, after 3 failed transfers, like insurance companies did not want to pay for me to have transfers anymore. We'd spent so much money. And I thought, okay, I'm going to go and try like in Zurich as well. So, and he said, you need a strategy. And I said, what do you mean by strategy? And he said, you might want to consider having like a surrogate. I mean, surrogacies in the US is between like 150 and 350K.
Yes.
Like that's so much money when we had already like spent so much money. So I went to Zurich and thought like, let me try in a different environment. It's laid back. My husband is based in Switzerland and we tried. Amazing doctor. She was incredible. She taught me a lot about my body and supported me and tried everything and it didn't work. And then one day I was broken. I think I spent like 3 months in depression.
Oh my
And
God.
when I came out, I remember just going online and looking I Googled expert in implantation failure, which is what I had. And because not all IVF doctors are created equal. Some doctors are really good at some things and some doctors are good at other things.
Yes.
I Googled, I got on a plane, went to Spain because I found experts in Spain and Greece, interviewed with some clinics to see if they could help me. But eventually that little bird that the seed that the doctor in New York had planted, I thought, I need to do this in a country where I'm able to do surrogacy in case, it doesn't work. And at that time, honestly, like my husband had given me an ultimatum. He was like, this is the last time we're doing this.
Yeah.
Like, please sign on the dotted line that you're not going to try to do this again. I don't want you to be depressed. I don't want you to go through this. I don't want you to do things to your body. Like, we're done. And I said, one more time, crying, it's really hard, like on the family. We'd never had explosive fights that we had when we were trying to work through these fertility issues. And it wasn't a fight like he was angry or anything, but he was just like, I don't want
Concern.
you to put your body through this. 3 surgeries, all kinds of treatments, like human growth hormone injections, where it's like he'd been asking doctors, like, what are the side effects? Like, what are
Yeah,
the,
like what are the side effects that you
her.
went through aside
The
from
hormones.
depression? Like
Yeah, I mean,
weight, lose weight.
there were so many. Like, I was put in menopause like 4 times.
Oh my God.
Yes, to reduce the inflammation. So before my embryo transfers, they would give me this injection that would put me, it's called Lupron, that would put me in menopause. And I remember the doctor saying, we can't do this more than like 3 times because it has side effects, like your bones are aching because they are reducing your estrogen. They're stripping your body of estrogen so that, you can, your reproductive health system can heal from inflammation.
Oh my
So then all the heat flashes and the always hot, cold, not sleeping, like just really tired all the time. And the ultimate thing though that the doctor said that made my husband like, we have to stop this. He said that there's some research that's been done, and I don't want to give people wrong information. Obviously, refer to your doctor on this.
Yeah.
But my doctor had said that in women that have done multiple like egg freezing cycles and not been able to have a baby, there's sort of like data showing that they're at increased risk of, some cancers. And I was one of those women because I did multiple, egg freezing cycles and I wasn't able to get pregnant. I did see counter research that said that this might not be the case because these women, the cancer these women were gonna have the cancer anyway due to
Okay.
other factors. And so it's like, but still, like hormones in your body all the time for
Too much.
6 years or 5 or whatever, it's not the best thing, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, but I learned a lot, and my daughter is absolutely beautiful, and we were so blessed and happy to have her, and I feel like the journey was worth it. But I also understand if people are like, I don't want to go through that. I have a friend who tried to do it for 10 years, and she spent so much money and went all over the world and failed. And she's very happy, like now, without having, and I want to also be very careful, because having a baby is not the end and be all. Like, you can live a very fulfilled life without a child. But the more I tried, the more I became obsessed with trying and having a baby and being successful and wanting, the baby really so much. And there were times when, like, I had an embryo transfer and I started building HCG, enough to see it. And then, like, 5 days or 6
Oh,
days into my
God.
embryo transfer. And then by like day 14 or 8 days, and then by day 14, I don't have, So it was like I came close and then it didn't happen. Yeah, it was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking,
Oh,
but I'm grateful for the happy ending.
I am so sorry that you went through that, and for all
Yeah,
the women that go through that with their
mm,
partners.
yeah,
I can't imagine the toll that it takes on someone's body. And there's somebody I know who's had so many miscarriages.
yes,
It kind of reminds me of the same
mhm,
situation, because you almost can have it and then it's
yes,
gone. You almost
yes,
can have it and then it's gone.
yes.
And thank you for sharing,
Of
really.
course. No, thank you for creating a safe space. And like you said, I've learned that a lot of women go through this, but people don't talk about it because it's either shameful or it's painful, or like people just are in so much pain and they don't want to talk about it. I have a friend going through this, and she said, I honestly can't even think about it, talk about it, because the pain is just so much. And I also remember not being able to talk about it. Like, it was just a handful of friends that knew about it, even family,
But
for African
the
people
judgment from
especially.
people, because given like where we come from,
Yes, yes,
especially in Africa, is just on a whole different level of judgment, especially when
yes,
it comes to women not being able to have children at
yes,
that time, at some point, whatever it is. Because once you get married, it just equals babies.
yes.
I took 7 years to not,
Mhm,
it was by choice not to have
mhm,
a
mhm,
baby at the time. I wanted to enjoy my partner. I wanted to enjoy my marriage and
mhm.
get to know my husband without kids.
Yes,
And I was just not ready. But my mom was busy pressuring, and I
yes,
knew where it was coming from.
yes,
It was coming from her mother, and then, oh,
yes,
she would even tell me, "Did you check your fallopian tubes?"
yes,
She'll just
yes,
call me just so that pressure. I think we need to
yes.
have more grace for women, especially women. Women are the ones that are actually giving pressure uh
Absolutely.
to the
Yeah. And men
fellow
can
women,
have issues
that we
too.
need to have so much grace for one another, because
Yes.
you don't know what someone is going through. Or
Yes.
maybe it's, wow.
Yeah. There were a lot of questions. My dad, who never says a word about this, once I went home to visit, and he said to me, like, are you planning to have a family? And I said, yes. And he said, well, I think he did it in a good way. He said, look, I want to meet my grandkids before I leave this earth. And, I also want to make sure that you're settled. And like, for him, it's like having a husband,
Yeah.
having a partner, having kids, it's being settled. But I had also other people that were just randomly super rude. Like, they would pick up the phone and just call me randomly on WhatsApp and say, like, when are you having a baby? Like, I see you're traveling all over, but have you thought about having a child? And I'm
Mm.
like, do you really want to know? Like, first of all, like, this is my medical, like, information, like, it's private. Like, I'm not,
Yeah.
someone asked me, so is it you or is it him? Like,
No.
you know how intrusive and crazy that question is.
That's
And a family
insulting.
member, and I remember being like, well, you're not my doctor. Like, I can't, like, I'm not obliged to discuss any of my medical information that's private and privileged with you. And at the same time, as an like friends and family, and as an African woman and person, that your aunt is calling. There's a certain level of respect that you
Yeah.
want to give them and not
Yeah.
be like, it's none of your business. So
Yeah.
for some people, I say, we're trying, please keep praying for us. That
Yeah.
was constantly my answer, but it was really hard to navigate.
No, I can't. I can't imagine, because just a little bit I went through with my
Yeah.
my relationship shifted with my mom, and this was just for me being by choice, and then you going through all of that. I can't imagine. I know when we spoke offline, we talked about different options that our community can take. Be given that there's a stigma I get around finding getting someone else to carry your child, and freezing eggs. How early can somebody do it? Do you mind just sharing some of the advice you've been given throughout, your journey?
Yes, absolutely. And actually, today, I sent out a newsletter because we talked about it, that I launched Women's Health Paper, this newsletter.
Nice. Yes.
I think will be information and create a safe space for women to discuss these issues. I sent the newsletter today was on like why I chose egg freezing and why I encourage other women to do it. And it's a controversial topic, obviously. In the last few years, egg freezing has become very popular in the West. And it was billed as this option that will help women live full lives, you
Yes.
know, enjoy their careers and not feel the pressure to have a baby really young, and also when they are navigating their careers and rising, but it's also become a thing for making money, where women are freezing their eggs really young and later realizing that maybe they don't want to have children at all, and
Mm.
they have the eggs. What I say is, if you know for sure that you don't want to have children, it's nothing for you. You don't have to look into it. You don't even have to learn about it. If you think you might want to have kids, it's something that I encourage people to look into. And I've helped a few friends and people in my community navigate this egg freezing process. And if you think that you want to have kids, it's definitely something that I encourage people to look into for so many reasons. One is, you really never know when you will be able to have a baby. Like, it took me 6 years
Yeah.
to actually have a baby. And the truth is, we do have a biological clock where at some point you might not be able to do it. I have friends that are in their late 40s, 50s that waited too long. A friend told me, like, look, I really wanted to be a mom, but I waited too long and I didn't, take advantage of all the things. All the things, it's really expensive to freeze your eggs. And in some countries, it's not even legal. I had a friend that was living and working in the Middle East, and it's
Mm.
not allowed, in the Middle East. And so she either had to travel to a different part of the world to do it, or she wouldn't do it at all. And then in some places, like I know in Uganda and East Africa, they have an amazing doctor who I considered using, Dr. Sally. He's a well-known specialist that's helping women with fertility. But in some countries, it might not be there.
Yeah.
So we have to be mindful when we recommend it. But if you're in a place where it's available, I think it starts with just informing yourself. There's a blood test that can be taken to measure like your AMH levels, and the doctor will give you a chart of where you are. Like typically, I think the right time to start exploring is in your late 20s, early 30s. They say that, it peaks around like, ideally you should do it before 38, right? The younger the eggs, the better, the condition. And it really, like, I used to be an advocate of like, do not try to have a baby when you're so young. And I still kind of feel that way. But I also think that it doesn't hurt to take a blood test and talk to your doctor and find out like what's going on with me. Do that scan, and the doctor will say, look, perfect shape. You still have time. You have, a lot of egg reserve. So that test is to show you how much egg reserve you have. And then you can go from there. I happen to have like really high egg reserve, and I wasn't in a hurry to like create like eggs because I was able to. I had really good AMH levels, but I have a friend who has really low AMH. What that means is that while I was able to do one cycle and get 20 eggs, she only got like 4 or 5. And IVF is a numbers game. The age at which you freeze your eggs is really important. How many eggs you freeze is really important. How many cycles you do is really important. Because what happens is these eggs are going to get frozen, and when you're ready, they will unthaw them and freeze them, and you lose quality. So you could freeze 20 in 2021 and end up with 10 in 2024. And what happens is they have to create embryos, with these. So you could end up with only 5 or 4 or none, right? So it's really important to be informed. Like, I think speaking to the doctor is the first point. And and being very proactive. What my doctor told me in New York, that amazing doctor, was at RMA, New Jersey, Dr. Berg, shout out to him if he ever, hears this. But he said to me, go to your doctor and say like, my goal is to have 2 kids, because then you can work backwards. Like, okay, my goal is to have 2 kids. Plan your family. My goal is to have 4 kids. Then you plan back. Like, how old are you now? How many egg cycles, like freezing cycles, do you need to do? If you want to have 2 kids, you might have to do 2 or 3 egg freezing cycles, because depending, are you married now? No. If you're not married and you freeze your eggs, they freeze them as just eggs. If you're married and you're ready to have a baby, they could freeze them as embryos, right? If you don't have eggs, there's an option to get, an egg donor, to be able to get an egg. If it's your husband who has the problem, you can get sperm, a sperm donor. So there's a lot of options, and obviously other things like adoption and, but there's definitely lots of options. And then when it comes to carrying a baby, then there's the option of, either you do it yourself or using a surrogate, which is the way that we ended up having to go after all the failed, basically being diagnosed with implantation failure. And that's a whole process that also, you really have to learn about.
So for somebody who might be thinking of going the surrogate journey, they hear your story and they're like, you know what, let me try this journey. How involved were you with your surrogate?
Yeah, I mean, I really was involved because one, I'm a type A, certain girl from New York City / Uganda who's like, yeah, but I think you can choose. Ideally, I honestly recommend to do it where you live or closer to where you live, because there's a lot of hopping on a plane and having to go do tests and this and lawyers and this and that. Like, and you can choose not to be involved and get your baby at the end. And I think I remember exploring like the idea of surrogacy in Uganda, and the doctor in Uganda had said like, they don't encourage you to have contact with the surrogate, which I thought, I don't want to do that. I know that they do, like before the war in Ukraine, it was also a very popular like surrogacy destination. And I know that in some clinics there, they also don't encourage contact. But for me, honestly, I thought about the idea of not for me more, but for her, to give her support
Yeah.
and be there for her on the journey, and like we were like sisters, literally. Like every week, every other day, I would call and check on her. It's so hard to ask this of someone, you know. I was involved from the beginning. My doctor, the clinic, they helped us connect us to all the resources that we needed to find someone. We found her. She needed some paperwork, and we helped her get the paperwork. We went, negotiated, we talked about the contract. And then from there, really, I was like, here's my phone number, like, call me anytime. And we met her before to make sure that she likes us as much as we like her. Like it's a journey. Like I think you need to have the connection.
Yeah.
Like you will know when you meet someone, like, is this the person? Like
Yes.
sometimes you're so desperate and it's really hard to find surrogates, right?
It could be blinding. Yeah.
Yeah, you could be blinded with like, oh my God, I really want to do it now and I don't want to wait anymore. But like when you meet the person, you will know like if this is the person for you. And she happened to love us and we loved her. And then I was there. I went to the scans if I could, or my husband went. I sent gifts. I was involved. I was involved with the clinic, the nurse. We had a midwife that was taking care of her. And she had questions. She'd never done it before. Like this medication, like, am I supposed to take it? I'm confused. Like helping her navigate that process, going to the pharmacy for her, like when I was in Greece, because it took place in Greece. That's where she was based. Even going there and taking her out to dinner, like, sending gifts to her kids, like at this point, really, she's family. So I was really involved. And look, it's a very emotional journey. Honestly, like I also understand when people say that they don't want to get involved and they want to just go and get their baby, because it can be draining and it can be very taxing. The thing that I learned was that it's your child, but it's her body.
Yes. Yes.
When we sit here and say like her body, her choice, I learned that it was a whole different meaning, like she wanted to eat certain things that maybe I wouldn't eat if I were pregnant, but she wanted to eat those things. And I'm not gonna tell a pregnant woman like, don't drink Fanta every day. She's like, I'm drinking Fanta every day. I'm like, yeah, great, like that's fine, Or a friend of mine did surrogacy, someone I recently met, and she said that her surrogate skipped some scans because she didn't want to be poked. And, she was like, baby's kicking, baby's fine. Like, I'm not going to go. And there's nothing you can do. Like, really, like legally, there are things you can do, but you don't want to put this person under pressure. Like, oh, I'm going to threaten you with legal action, So it's about maintaining communication, a good relationship. And I also understand people that are like, I don't want to be involved. Like, I just want to go and get my baby and go, because it's very emotionally draining and you're so connected. And yeah.
Wow. How is the bonding process with the baby? Like you take the baby the moment the baby comes out.
Yes.
How is the bonding process for you?
Yeah.
The bonding starts from the belly. And
Yes.
for you, it's a bit different.
Yes.
How is that? What are they? What do they teach you? Do they tell you what to do?
Yeah, I had an amazing team of like my doctor, a midwife that was working with the surrogate, a midwife that was working with us. I went to specialists, like lactation specialists, should the baby have breast milk? Should the baby do this? Should the baby, you know, take formula, like doctors? Like I had an amazing support system. But to be honest, like I think we loved our baby from the moment we made the embryos. You know, I
Yeah.
remember going to pick which embryo we should, you know, transfer to the
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 surrogate. Mhm.
I remember being in the room with her, you know, when she was getting the transfer and holding her hand and like, you know, then waiting the 2 week wait, you know, where you wait to find out if you're pregnant. And she sent me, you know, the picture. She sent me a picture and I misread the test and thought we were not pregnant. I remember we were in Japan and I was crying the whole time. I was like, she's not pregnant. I told my husband, what are we gonna do? Like, oh my God. Like, I was on a vacation on my birthday and I was completely broken. And my husband was like, who told you she's not? And I said, she sent me a picture of the test and it did, like I misread the test. And then the doctor called when we were at dinner and said, they said, I called my clinic and said, she's not pregnant. And the clinic said, like, we don't take home tests. She has to come in for blood tests. Like, we don't go with home tests.
Yeah.
So she came in for blood test and then the doctor called and said, congratulations. I was at dinner. It
Oh
was
my God.
great. And
Great
then
birthday
my
gift.
whole vacation shifted and we were celebrating and happy, but could not tell people because we were really scared to jinx it. We were
Mhm.
like, let's just keep this a secret. Like no one is gonna know until we feel very ready and comfortable. So that whole time, you know, I'm talking to her. I'm like, how are you feeling? She's like, I'm throwing up, or I'm not, or, you know, I'm not sleeping, like I'm not doing this. Then I went to see her, you know, I touched the belly, I spoke to baby, you know, and then we started actually, we recorded our voices and sent like voice notes to her and said, hey, like play this for the baby so she can know our voices. Like when we get her eventually, we
Yeah.
sent playlists so that she could play her music. And every time I called, she said, I will put you on speaker so baby can hear you. And we spoke for an hour, you know, the whole thing. I got scans, you know, the doctor sent me scans. The doctor, sometimes they would call me when they're doing the scan so I could listen to the heartbeat and stuff. So it was really good. And then, of course, at the birth, you know, we were there before. We went to, you know, to be with her like the whole month before the baby came.
Oh, wow.
We collected colostrum from her. And I actually like was so engaged. Like I planned like a hospital bag and like, you know, did everything, packed everything. And then we
Yeah.
went and she was very good about like be in the room. I remember we were in this little tiny hospital room once and they said like, oh, you guys go outside. And she said, no, they're the parents, like they need to be here. You know, and our doctor was really helping to, you know, because a lot of protocols changed after COVID. So they wouldn't allow like everybody in the room and stuff, but
Yeah.
our doctor asked for legal permission from the hospital so we could be there. So the night of the labor, we were there. We went to the hospital, like they said, come at 11, check in, and just, you know, let's start inducing. And we were in the room the whole time with her. I went to help her shower. Like she was on that bowl, and we were rubbing her stomach. She was throwing up a storm, and we were there with her the whole time. And then the baby was, you know, they took the baby and gave her to us for bonding, and we, you know, we were bonding and held her. And then they took her for cleaning and all the tests. And then they brought her back to us at midnight. But we were in the same hospital with the surrogate. We were like on the 8th floor. She was on the 7th floor. And she was out of it because she ended up like having a C-section.
Yeah.
And then we checked on her, made sure she was fine. We had like the midwife coming between us and her, checking, and the doctor. And then on the 3rd day, when she felt like, I think the next day I called to check on her because I had the baby. My husband was going between both floors and walking her like, oh, they said she should walk. And then he would go
Yeah,
with
for the
her to
blood
the
flow.
catheter. Yes, exactly. And then she said, can you please send me? And I wanted to be careful not to overwhelm her, you know? She said, can you please send me pictures of the baby? So I sent pictures. And then she was like, oh, she's so cute. I'm so happy for you guys. And then on the third day, she was able to walk. And then we said, you should come see the baby. Then she came up and she held the baby. I have this amazing picture of her holding the baby and praying over the baby. And
Oh
then she
my
said, I
God.
pray that your baby will bring you like happiness. I pray that she will be a beautiful baby that listens to you and doesn't defy you. I pray that she will like be exceptional. And it was just, oh my God, I even want to cry when I think about it. And then, you know, we went home and we took her home. We kept checking on her and checking on her, making sure she's fine. And then about a few, maybe 4 weeks later, we had her at the house over to see the baby before we left, you know, because we were in Athens for like 3 months. And then when we were leaving, we invited her to come and see the baby. And, you know, we sent pictures and, you know, and she's a mom of 3. So
Yeah,
she actually told me a lot of things in the beginning. She's like, you know, sleep her like this, do this, like give her this,
yeah.
oh, the colic. And she was like, she's prayerful, believing, amazing woman. She's like,
Oh my
I
God.
prayed over her, she's not gonna have colic. I prayed over her, she's not gonna give you a hard time. Like, just really great, really great.
Oh my goodness. What an amazing story. Just watching you, how you are telling your story,
Yes,
it's so inspirational on how, like, I think you are healed from
yes,
the whole journey. Like,
yes,
I think you can tell even for yourself, like the healing journey has,
yes,
you know, has
yeah,
gone through, because
yeah,
I'm sure there's so many people that you're giving voices to that are gonna hear you and they're gonna be like, yes,
yeah.
I've gone through that, I've gone through that, and you'll be very inspirational to a lot of people that are going through it. I hope they also find healing in this journey.
Yeah, thank you so much. I did feel like, you know, the moment, even before the birth, there was a lot of drama. Like, oh my God, it was so crazy. But
Mm-hmm.
when she came and we held her, everything like went
Yep.
away. It was like we're not angry at anybody. We're just so happy. We're blessed. And then obviously, like it's really hard, like, you know, having a baby, like the first few days. And I keep every time I'm very tired, I'm like, I wanted this, like I wanted her. I think the biggest thing for me is that I just want her to know that we really wanted her and we were so happy to have her and we were so ready to have her. And, you know, I feel like my armor is like, there's nothing I will not do or go through for this baby because I really like was ready for her and I really
Yeah.
wanted her. That doesn't mean I'm not exhausted as a mom, you know,
Yeah.
but it's amazing. And we're just so happy. Like I almost forgot like the times when it was so difficult and so painful. And
Yeah.
when I look at her little face, I'm just like, wow. And it's amazing because, of course, we did skin to skin and all those things, but just spending time with baby, I think has really helped with the bonding.
Yeah.
My sister and my cousin are here today. My cousin is a baby nurse, and so she's helping
Oh,
me
nice.
and us. And when my sister came and she came, and that was the first time that we had people with her. And she took her and she looked at me. She's only 10 weeks old. And she was like, "Ah."
Oh,
Like she's
she
like,
knows who her mommy is.
she knows who her mom is and she wants to come to me. And I was like, no, I emailed everybody. I texted all my girlfriends and said, isn't it too soon? And they were like, no, like she's used to you now, like, you know.
Yeah.
And even today, like I went to get her in the morning because my cousin had her. And she looks at me and she's like, oh, like she's so happy to see me. It's just the best feeling in the world. And sometimes when she's so like on the age, like either I pick her or my husband, and then she'll keep quiet. If someone picks her, like she's like, "Eh." So it's been great bonding with baby, and I'm like, it's really hard because I am very tired, but it's also like a bit unhealthy because I don't want to let her out of my sight. I had to go to Spain to do something for like 48 hours and I
Yeah.
couldn't. I was like, I need to go back like 24 hours later. So I'm trying to be like, I'm not like the only person who can take care of her. Like other people can also like take care of her. But I
You'll
just,
find your rhythm. You'll
yes,
find your
yes,
rhythm.
yes,
It's something that's new to you,
yes,
and I think all the parents, especially the first child, wait till you
yes.
have the second one be like, ah, sit.
Yeah. I
Talk
don't
to
know.
me.
We might be a one and done after everything we've been through, but uh yeah, I'm so excited to see what the future holds for us. And of course, like you're a mommy, so it's women like you and my friends and family that just encourage me and give me advice. And like honestly, like moms are so amazing. I've had like some amazing advice on what to do, how to treat like certain things like colic and this. And even when you
Colic
say
is
that
the
you
worst
find
one.
your
Colic
rhythm,
is the worst one. You will
yeah.
find your rhythm.
Yeah, it's
It
very
takes a
helpful
while.
because I'm like,
It takes a while.
yeah, it's very helpful to hear that because I don't actually know. Like, are we in the rhythm? Are we gonna find it? Like, even with my husband, like he's working a lot and traveling a lot, and he comes back and he feels like he's missed time. We definitely, it's good to hear that we'll find our rhythm.
No, you will, because the baby changes, the sleep
Yeah.
patterns change, and then
And
you're gonna find your own rhythm. Like, I'll give you an example. My daughter was a night owl. She would just stay up. As soon as 1 a.m. comes, she's
yeah.
up for like 3 hours.
Oh,
So my
oh,
mom was like, sleep during the day when she's sleeping. Because I used to be up. I was like, oh, let me do this, let me do that while she's sleeping. But she's like, no, you need to do the reverse. When she's
yeah.
sleeping, you sleep. But
Mhm.
then eventually her sleep patterns changed. Mine's also had to change because
Yeah.
it's all about them now. So it's
Yes.
about them for a little bit, and then once everything changes, you change your routines as well.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
yeah, you go back to, busy business mom and,
Yes.
wife. It'll be mom, wife, and, you know, businesswoman.
Yes. Absolutely.
So I want to take you back a little bit. Prior to you, starting the test, were you doing the annual checkups? Like, you know how we do them here?
Yes, the pap smears.
Yeah,
Yes, I was. I was. When I was an entrepreneur, actually, I didn't have insurance for a while, but I actually went to Planned Parenthood, which people don't even know that like this is an amazing resource for people that don't have, health insurance. And I used to go to Planned Parenthood to get my checkups for free. And I remember everything was fine with the pap smear, but I remember the last one I went, they did a checkup and I said, I have pain. And she said, it feels like you have a fibroid, like, or something, like, you should get it checked. So that's when I was like, okay, they said I have a fibroid, and then it planted a seed. It's really important for women to get checked. Like even like now, they're recommending that we have mammograms like earlier. I
yeah,
had one when I was going through this process because I was taking a lot of hormones, and I would feel like certain like sensations in my boobs, and I ended up having a mammogram. But it's really important to do those tests, and also to do that blood test that tells you about your fertility, because I think the pap smear will tell you that you're fine, like you
yeah.
don't have cancer cells or you don't have an STD, but it doesn't tell you if you have fertility issues or not.
Correct, correct. No, one of the reasons I asked, remember, when I spoke to you offline,
Mhm.
before I got pregnant, I was the same, just like you. I think it's all of us women. We just assume I'm gonna get
Yes,
pregnant right
yes,
away, just like that.
yes.
And when we finally decided, it's like, let's have a baby, I went, we tried for like a month. I was like, no, there's something wrong. I'm very in tune with my body. I'm like, there's something wrong. I need to be pregnant. Like,
Yeah.
so I went for a checkup. I went always for my annual checkups, but they never did a sonogram.
Mm-hmm.
So that time when I went, I asked for an ultrasound actually. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so they said they found a polyp, and that
Yes.
polyp was blocking all the way. So it's a smaller version for anybody who's not familiar, because I was not familiar until I was diagnosed with it.
Yes.
It's like a fibro, but it's one.
Mm-hmm.
So it was blocking um, anything that was going in to try to get pregnant.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It was small. The surgery was very quick. When they told me that it's a quick surgery, it's a camera type of thing. Depending on where you are in the world, I'm sure there's different ways that doctors can
Yes.
do. Um, Once they took that out, they told us to wait 3 months, which we didn't. I healed within, I was younger.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
healed
for sure.
very quickly, and I was pregnant right away.
Amazing.
Um, Fast forward, one of my best friends, she went through the same process, thinking again, I'm gonna get pregnant. She had a son early when she was younger. She has a husband now, and they tried. 8 months in, I'm like, did you ever have a doctor like check
Mm-hmm.
inside to see what's going on? And for sure, she also had the same polyp. So
Yeah.
we encourage everybody, try to go for those checkups.
Yes.
If
Yes.
your country offers it, and for African countries, please try to have those
Yes.
checkups for
Yes.
women.
Yes.
Make them free if you can, because they're really, really important. Instead of
Yeah.
stigmatizing women
Yes.
and shaming them that they cannot have children, let's find out the why.
Yes, 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 yes. And there's also like one of the first early tests they do is to check if your ovaries are open. Because if
Mm-hmm.
your ovaries are not open, that's something else that, can block, and stop you from having a baby. Also checking actually, one simple thing that women can do is checking if they are ovulating. There are ovulating kits that you can check. I had a friend who had tried to have a baby and failed, and we spoke, and I had, obviously all these resources I had learned in IVF. So I say to her, like, why don't you try taking CoQ10, because she wasn't ovulating as much. And
Mm.
you can check, now there are these ovulating like kits. I
Yeah.
think it's really important to know if you ovulate or not, because if you don't ovulate, that's a problem. And even something as simple as if you don't get your period, I used to have a friend who wasn't getting her period, and you can't actually get pregnant if you're not getting your period,
Yeah.
because it means you're probably not ovulating. So these are already things that you can look into. Like your period should be regular. You should be ovulating. You can check with that test strips and see if you're ovulating.
Yeah.
Then you should go get like checked, like you said. Polyps can be malignant, or they could have like cancer,
Yes.
and
Mine
get
had to be
checked.
checked for that.
Yes, 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 yes. And then there's also that fact that you could have a blockage. You could have a blockage. And if you're not ovulating, they can give you medicine that can help you ovulate. Or you can take things like CoQ10 to help you ovulate more. I prescribed it, I mentioned it to a friend, and she took it, and she started ovulating more, and she had a baby. And she said, I really believe that it helped me because I was able to ovulate more. So these are all really important things for women to look into if they're really on the journey, or if
Mhm.
they're having difficulty, because it could be one of these things that we mentioned, or something else.
Wow. I mean, I can talk to you forever.
Yeah,
You have so
me
much
too.
wisdom and listen, what do you have on your heart that you want to leave the audience with?
Yeah, I'm just really grateful for our journey and that I'm able to share. I think one of the things I've learned is to just be more open about these things, as women, and to just seek out other women and have conversations, because you just never know what people are going through. A lot of women have reached out to me, and men actually, but they've reached out to me and say, thank you so much for creating this safe space, the newsletter. Thank you so much for talking about this publicly, like on my Instagram, because I came out and said that, you know, I've been going through this. And a lot of women reached out to me and said, I've been going through the same, like I've not been able to talk about it. Like you say, we need to have grace for women and everything that they're going through. We need to have grace for women, knowing that the medical system lets us down, you know, that you can't even have a sonogram if your insurance doesn't approve it, or you have to pay for it out of pocket. We need to have grace.
Always.
Yes, for women that our doctors don't believe us, you know, you could say like, something is wrong, and they'll be like, nothing is wrong, you know. That's also a thing. And then of course, when women are going through infertility, like, let's just really try to embrace them instead of judging or making comments, and respect people's choices of having a family. Like, there's so many ways to have a family. Adopting, you know, donating and giving to causes, and, you know, having a baby via surrogate, having a baby, like your sister can give you an egg. You know, I have a friend who offered sperm to his brother because his brother was not able to have kids. There's so many ways of having a family, and let's be open and educated about those ways so that we don't suffer in silence.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. How can we join your community? How can our audience join?
Yeah, so it's Women's Health Paper. That's the newsletter. Please sign up. And also, I have the link to sign up in my Instagram. It's sarah.nakintu. And I usually send out the newsletter every 2 weeks. And of course, you know, this podcast is amazing. You're constantly introducing women that are doing amazing things and really targeting the conversation to things that matter to women. So communities like this, I think, are really important to join.
Yes, no, thank you so much, and congratulations.
Thank
Enjoy
you.
your baby. They grow up so fast.
And you have to meet her.
Yeah.
So plan, you know, that meeting. Thank you for the encouragement and just for embracing me and creating this space that's really judgment free. I enjoyed chatting with you.
Oh, same here. I was looking forward to this for so long. This is why when my craziness was happening, I'm like, this has to happen.
Yes. Thank you for making it happen.
No, thank you so much. It's been an honor, and I'm so happy. I'm so happy.
Thank you.
I'm happy for you.
Thank you. I'm gonna go get the snuggles in again.